welcome to this evening's 24th of May's meeting of the Eden District Council Cabinet. Agenda item 1 is apologies for absence. And we have no apologies for absence. Councillor Robinson is obviously delayed and will tear in at some point. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. So this is to receive declarations of the existence and nature of any private interests, both disclosable, pecuniary and other registrable interests, in any matter to be considered or being considered. Do we have any declarations of interest this evening? Councillor Derbyshire.
I was going to abstain from item 8 because I'm the District National Park Planning Committee, the Development Control Committee, and the issue is a topic that is under discussion with the District National Park. If it does come to Planning Committee, I feel the pleasure that we can take part in the discussion or vote on the issue.
Thank you very much. Does Councillor Derbyshire have to leave the room? No. Thank you. Agenda item 1, agenda item 3, excuse me. This is the minutes, recommendation that the public minutes, cabinet /117/4/22 to cabinet /129 for 22, and the confidential minute cabinet 128/422 of the meeting of the Cabinet held on the 19th of April 2022 are confirmed and approved by the Chairman as a correct record of those proceedings. Copies have been previously circulated, so I'm recommending that. Second is, thank you, Councillor Sharp, and has everybody approved the minutes of the show? Thank you very much. Agenda item 4 is questions and representations from the public. This is to receive questions and representations from the public under Rules 3 and 4 of the Executive Procedure Rules of the Constitution. And we have 4 questions tonight. I don't know if the members of the public know the order in which they're coming. Do you? No. Okay. So the first question is from Mr. Solway, the second from Mr. Kitchen, the third from Mr. Solway, and the last from Mr. Davis. Excuse me. If you have a question, you come to that table and put the microphone on. So, Mr. Solway, thank you.
This is obviously regarding item 8 on the agenda, the Crown and Mitre Inn. I'm a resident of Baptist Grange. According to the website acvsupport.co.uk, an ACV status on a property not only gives the community the right to bid, but that achieving the status should protect the inn via the removal of permitted development rights for change of use and demolition. Owners seeking to change the pub's planning use, class or should demolish it, must allow the community and customers of the pub to comment. My question is, this appears applicable to what is happening to the Crown and Mitre. If the council disagree, can they please explain why?
So, the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development Order 1995 was amended in 2015. These amendments relate to certain permitted developments and provide that during a specified period, certain development is not permitted in relation to a specified building. The Lake District National Park is the planning authority for the property in question, so it would not be appropriate for this council to comment on the use of the property or the application of these regulations. Do you have a supplementary question?
No, that's okay.
Thank you very much. And the second question is Kitchen.
He's unable to attend.
Okay. I believe somebody can read his question for him.
Does the Council feel that it is in the interests of the community to have an unsupervised 24-person holiday let in the centre of a village community of approximately 50 residents. Bearing in mind the same village already has a 32-person holiday let within a half a mile and several other holiday let Airbnb second homes within the village.
Thank you. So the council's views on tourist development might be seen in the extract from our local plan, quoted in the application for ACB status. However, the planning authority for Bampton is the Lake District National Park, so EDC's policies are not applicable. As politicians, we are extremely concerned about the prevalence of second homes and the increase in Airbnb and similar property use. I can assure Mr. Kitchen that we lobby central government for powers which will enable us to address the situation, which indeed threatens the sustainability of our communities more effectively. And as Mr. Kitchen's not here, we'll have to make a supplementary question. So that is solved.
So, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm a bit nervous. I haven't spoken to this many people before. I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to, a lot of what I'm going to say is probably a repetition of what you just heard, and you're probably going to repeat back, so do apologise. If I can quote from the CAMRA website, most local authorities have planning policies that help protect valued community facilities, and ACB listing is clear evidence that the community does indeed value the park. Some councils have policies which single out ACB listed facilities for higher levels of protection. National planning policy recognises that ACB listing should be a material consideration in planning decisions. And while I accept this is outside the control, perhaps, of Beacon District Council, we are seeking your support in this. So with submitting a request for ACB status on Crown and Mitre, where the majority of permanent households agreed to its submission, would the council agree that this property is clearly valued by the local community and as such should have some level of protection around its use now and in the future, especially as it's operating as a large holiday let?
Thank you. So the council accepts that the group which has nominated this asset does view the property as an asset to the community. The use of a property is a matter of planning law and policy, and it's open to local planning authorities to take ACB status into account as a material consideration when determining planning applications. But the weight given to it will be a matter for the decision maker, which in this case is the Lake District National Park Authority. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do, I'm afraid. If the council would grant the ACB for this property, it might help us in keeping the coaching in as a historic coaching in for our community, if the council would grant it. That all helps. So,
Do you agree?
would you agree to that for us?
I realise it's a bit sort of litigious, but I just have to repeat what I just said, which is that it's a matter for the decision maker, which is the Lake District National Park Planning Authority.
I feel though that the council could help us along that route if they lent us their support. So,
Yes. I have been advised that it's coming up later on the agenda, and so we cannot. You will find out later.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Davis, or Mr. Davis? Mr. Davis.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether this is
it's actually put to yourself as a legal portfolio holder. I wasn't quite told where the question was going.
I'm planning to inquire.
I wish to ask how the Cabinet can consider using S106 funding to provide capital grants to developers that in some cases have made the commitment as part of planning applications and S106 agreements to provide affordable homes that even council are now subsidising, it appears, if the grants are approved in item 7 tonight. And other grant applications also for consideration by the Cabinet for Development, that based on information received over the weekend, the applicant has no planning application put forward or approval to even council as the planning authority, and also doesn't own the land that the grant funding is proposed for to provide these properties on. Given the government's proposed changes to the S106 requirements on affordable homes, would even be better placed to deliver directly affordable homes potentially by the council's own Heart of Cumbria Limited, instead of subsidising already agreed affordable homes that are part of S106 agreements and giving grants for developments not even approved for development at this time.
Thank you for your question. Housing developers and registered providers would ordinarily ensure they have all the necessary funding in place prior to submitting a planning application. Notwithstanding that, the council could approve the initial allocation of funds, but any payment will be still subject to the necessary due diligence having been completed, such as proof of land ownership, planning permission, and a review of the business case. In relation to the direct delivery of affordable housing units, the work undertaken to review the Heart of Cumbria showed that the direct delivery is not financially sustainable, and therefore funds from Section 106 were appropriately spent in partnership with those providers while delivering in the district. Do you have a further question?
I do, thank you. I mean, members are all aware of the email with the information that was sent around. One of these grant applicants has previously agreed in planning to provide for affordable homes, which now the council are looking to subsidise potentially if the grants are approved this evening. Is it not that the council are actually subsidising what was originally agreed in planning applications to get that planning passed now?
I'll get back to you with a written answer on that, because I think it needs more detail than I've got to hand at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 5 is questions from members, and we haven't received any questions from members. Representations from the public. I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. So, first is Mr. Solway. Thank you very much. I apologize, Mr. Solway. Mr. Solway, do you have a question?
Is that, sorry, I thought I was going to ask a question. Like, can I?
As far as the council is aware, you made a request to make representations, which you are entitled to do. Obviously, we do have a copy of it, which has been circulated to all members. So if you're satisfied that they've been circulated and members have the opportunity to read them, then that's fine. Otherwise, you're more than entitled to read them out.
Well, not if the members have already. It's fine by me.
Thank you very much. Yes, and Ms. Kitchen.
She's not here, I'm sorry, she's speaking.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There are still no questions from members. And agenda item 6 is the corporate performance report from quarter 4, which is 1st of January 22 to 31st of March 2022. So this is in retrospect, obviously, and the report provides a summary of progress against the revised corporate performance targets. And it informs us and goes to the scrutiny committee when it's submitted there of any areas of concerns or issues requiring attention and the remedial activity in place to deal with this. So there's a considerable sort of amount of detail and plans in this tables in this report. I'll just go through a few of them. Before I start, once again, I have to thank Amanda Yellerly and her team for such a clear and effective monitoring of all the important multiplicity of the work the Eton District Council does for its residents and for its economy. You can see what we're doing, and I trust that people are, that residents and others are confident that we are delivering effectively. It does the report does question whether there are any areas of concern, and if you wouldn't mind, just sort of commenting. So there's no areas of concern clearly within the corporate plan dashboard. There are a few reds within the key performance indicators. So I think most of them are sort of like within tolerance and control. So planning, for example, which is in my portfolio, so I'm familiar with it. So that's on page 23 of your pack. So while the results are less good than we'd like, they're still exceeding national targets. There's an increased number of applications to deal with, and there have been a considerable staffing changes. So we're now in a better place. We have a much better service. I think we're maybe taking a little time to bed down. But there are a few other sort of like red shapes of interesting geometry. I don't know if there are any that you might be able to just comment on, just to satisfy us that things are under control. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the other reds in the report, all of them are around homelessness. And obviously, the government have put certain strategies in place, so we have an obligation to put more people in B&B because of the Rent and Vaccinated programme, because obviously we do want people who are sleeping. So normally within the Eton area, we don't have a high uptake of B&B use in terms of accommodation, but that has increased, particularly during COVID. And hopefully over the next few months we should see that improve as well. And if you don't mind, Chair, I'd also like to highlight under 4.25 of the main report, which is the allocation of COVID grants, which I'm just missing up explicitly. We're a very small authority, but I'm proud to say we administered £56.5 million worth of COVID grants, and this falls down to a very small number of officers within the council. And I would like to say my thanks to the teams involved, revenues and benefits, economic development, finance and customer services, and we've built on all those calls. So I think well done to all those officers involved, Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes, so I mean 56 million is a pretty eye-watering amount of money, considering our operating budget is about 10 million, so I think it's sort of sort of as it were my highlights, the town hall is when Vereda House is ready for us to move into, be repurposed as community and artist use, and so we've already just begun. It doesn't appear exactly in this report because this report is retrospective, but as a result of the feasibility study, the town hall is a test bed to try out different community and artistic and indeed economic development uses. And we had our very first use of that, which was swim, a couple of weeks ago, which was attended by 65 people. And was a great success in this room, which was obviously had to be improvised to become a sort of theatrical venue. But so when people don't really need fancy facilities to do imaginative and creative things together. So we're starting by doing things, and I'm sure it will be a great success. Similarly, from my point of view, our arts programme is now on the way. There is a community fund to be applied to, and our local arts providers are given some assistance to develop their work for themselves and for the future and for the district. I don't know if any of us would like to name their highlights.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment on Appendix A on the corporate plan dashboard. The public grounds are supporting communities to improve local spaces, allotments and play areas for active leisure, safe outdoor play and improve biodiversity. And just to mention, the scheme is underway, I'm really pleased to say, to improve play parks across Eden. And the proposed works this year are being worked up and identified through weekly inspections and site visits and so forth. And include things like repairs to safety services, new fencing and replacement of the equipment in certain places. And it's really exciting to see that we'll have this year have some improvements to all our play areas and other people's areas and open spaces.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a Councillor Dodge?
Sorry, I've got to blow the trumpet on page 16 on the low carbon housing retrofit programme, because the staff have been doing a brilliant job on getting more homes improved, both urban and rural areas, to help people reduce their fuel poverty, reduce their carbon emissions, and be healthier in their homes, which reduces the pressure on the NHS. So I'm really proud of the team for all the work they've been doing there. But I'd also like to point out on page 22 the key performance indicators. We've got red on the number of people in temporary accommodation, and the number of households accessing B&B and current nights in B&B, but it's also got the note of maximising use of temporary accommodation and to minimise use of bed and breakfast, lack of available move-on accommodation and complexity of cases extending the time in temporary accommodation. And it is this problem of the lack of good houses to move people into when they become homeless. And also we're highlighting the fact that we're getting quite a lot of larger families who look to be moving into homelessness because paying the rent on a larger property, also heating it, and then also feeding a large family with the cost of living crisis means that quite a few of these families are getting further into debt. So I'm keen to take forward the projects we've got in item 7 to help reduce the problems and provide more accommodation.
Councillor Tomkin.
The handheld vacuum machines that are referred to in job farming have arrived, they're working, they're going to be used twice a week by the data unless people request it, but I'm sure they're going to be invaluable for the post office dealer.
Thank you. This is the machine commonly known as a poofer. Anybody else? Oh, actually, we've got things to brag about. How's it coming? Thank you. In that case, I would like to make a recommendation for this report, which is slightly limp, that we note the progress for quarter 4, 2021 to 22. So I have made the recommendation. Does anybody have any? Councillor Robinson, I think. Does anybody have anything further to say? We can have a debate at this point, but I think we can thank you very much. Duly noted. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you very much. Agenda item 7 is capital grants for affordable housing projects. This falls into the housing and health portfolio. The Lodge, the Social Centre, and over. Thank you.
start by saying I'm glad that quite a few people have read the report, because it's good to get debate and discussion on ways forward. And I'm glad that people are putting questions and expressing their views on the topic. We're keen to use the funds that we've got available in the Section 106 pot, because, as I said just before, we've got reports coming forward of more households, potentially more larger households, becoming homeless. So we're keen to work with partners to provide the homes, especially those of a suitable size and good eco standards for our residents. We've had queries to do with item 4, which is the Penrith View property, number 7, because we're helping Eden Housing Association to do the extension to provide a much needed larger home. We're also planning to use funding that we've got in our Eco and EcoFlex pots of money to improve the insulation and heating system of the property to a higher standard. It's basically a council house or an ex-council house that hasn't had much work done to it over many years, and it's needing a lot of improvements. So we're planning to work with the Eden Housing Association to do improvements on that. On other projects, the officers will still be working with developers and housing associations to ensure high standards as much as possible, but we are conscious that we have issues to do with liability on some projects in the area. So we're keen to get the affordable housing to the highest standard we can, and officers will be working with developers and housing associations to take projects forward. We've also got, we don't just give the money out, but we put in a lot of clauses and conditions to ensure that it's going to be well used and up to the standards that we want. So therefore, I move the recommendations. It's recommended that the 4 applications set out in 3.7 be approved. It is recommended that, subject to the approval of 2.1, Council approve that the budgets of the capital grants totaling 544,000 be included in the capital grant programme 2022-23 to be funded from the Section 106 receipts.
Thank you very much. So, do we have any questions before I take a second of that? Was that Councillor Rother on the questions?
Yeah, obviously, when we're looking at affordable housing and having decent housing for our residents, we need to make sure that, as you said, they are viable as regards to the renewable measures that we're putting in. With application 1, obviously that application 1 is a brand new build, so when they're being built, they should meet the building specs, so they should have the required insulation in the walls and in the roof. And I think the same for application 3, that's new builds, so again they should be up to specs, there shouldn't be any issues with the insulation there. With obviously Hunter Lane, which is the old police station, the main part of that is an old building which is solid built. Is there any way that we can look at having internal insulation put in inside the building to make it more energy efficient? Because you could obviously have cavities, you can't have cavity insulation.
I'm looking to Amanda to see whether she's had any dealings with it or not.
No, I've not had any dealings with that, but that would be a conversation we would need to have with the developer. So obviously they will do the refurbishment to current buildings standard, which is quite right, to be able to see what I haven't had that discussion with us, we can't see you now, but a lot of these things are down to due diligence as well, making sure we go up to the standard on them, but it also has to be affordable.
And same for application 4, it's an existing property. Looking at the EPC, it looks like it's a solid wall original building, it's not an extension that has got cavity wall insulation put in and cloth insulation. Again, for Penrith View, just a question of can we put insulation in the solid wall bits, internal insulation, and more insulation in the loft space.
I do know the housing team are going to use some large funding potentially to enhance the insulation value. So.
Yeah, as long as that's done, then yeah, it's fantastic.
Thank you very much. Perhaps you could just have a very few words, say what 106 money is.
It's the money we get through planning permissions and planning commissions come forward, and at times they have to give money instead of getting the affordable housing built. It's got to be used within the Eden area. Sometimes it has to be used within specific areas and for specific things, and we have information being assessed on that, but we have got the records of where we've got the funding from and how we can use it in the future.
Thank you very much. If there was any further questions, I will second this report. I mean, I'm very pleased that we are being able to work with partners to develop our affordable housing with higher standards, and I'm sure that those partnerships will work towards getting the best outcomes that we possibly can. Did you make the recommendation? You did. And it's been seconded by me. And do we have any more debate? In which case, what? Thank you very much. That's carried. And agenda item 8: nomination as an asset of community value of the Crown and Mitre at Bantam Grange. And so the purpose of the report is to consider the nomination of the Crown and Mitre Bantam Grange as an asset of community value under the Localism Act of 2011. And as everybody here has read in the report, the recommendation to Cabinet from EDC's lawyers is that this application for the Crown and Mitre Bantam Grange to be listed as an asset of community value should not be accepted. But given that there is considerable local concern about the future of the Crown and Mitre, I'm proposing that this application be deferred to give the community group time to clarify their assessment of how the land is eligible for nomination as in section 88 of the Act. In particular, how it furthers the social interests of the local community, and it must be realistic to think that such a use can continue in the future. Alternatively, that there was a time in the recent past, I quote, and that there will be a time in the next 5 years where it will do so again. Though this test has to be met for land to be listed under that Act, and we need further details to ensure that a decision to list the asset would be sound. We as politicians wish to support the sustainability of our rural communities and economies, but we have to follow the legal frameworks to achieve those goals. Should an asset of community value be put up for sale, the status confers the right for a community to delay the sale of that asset while funds are raised in the community. The status cannot influence the business model of a current owner and cannot force a sale. ACV status has considerably fewer powers and advantages than is frequently thought. ACV status cannot address some of the concerns that the community currently has about the use of the Crown and Mitre. ACV status has no power to affect the running of a business by its current owners. I believe that there is currently an application for change of use of the Crown and Mitre before the relevant planning authority, which is the Lake District National Park Planning Authority. Only the planning authority can make a decision on change of use. The Lake District National Park Planning Authority does not appear to have a special policy for ACVs. There are a number of matters referred to relating to the sale of the Crown and Mitre and the other developments in Manchester, which are not strictly relevant to the potential ACV status of this land. And I hope that the applicants will be able to provide further appropriate evidence how the Crown and Mitre should be listed as an asset of community value. And so I propose a recommendation which is One, that this application be deferred to give the community group time to clarify their assessment of how the land is eligible for nomination as in section 88 of the Act. In particular, how it furthers the social interests of the local community, and it must be realistic to think that such a use can continue in the future. Alternatively, that there was a time in the recent past, and there will be a time in the next 5 years, where it will do so again. And that this nomination is reconsidered by Cabinet at its meeting on the 21st of June 2022. So I've proposed that recommendation, and that the text obviously will be provided to you. And I think that it's best that we just proceed to second that, and do we need to vote on it in the normal way. So I need to have a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Ruddle, and we proceed to the vote. Thank you very much. And so the next item on the agenda is agenda item 9, devolution of assets. And this is falls under the portfolio holder, the resources portfolio holder, which is Councillor Greenwood's pass over to her.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is for the Cabinet to consider how to proceed with the review into the devolution of assets as set out in this report. Following the motion of notice to Council on the 29th of April 2021, Council resolved to immediately rescind the March 2022 deadline for the withdrawal of rural services that parish and town councils have not adopted, as defined in the report considered by Council in July 2017, and to instruct officers to work with overview and scrutiny and partners, including parish and town councils and or their representatives, to develop a new policy. Overview and Scrutiny set its annual work programme at its meeting the 15th of July 2021, and this included a policy review of the transfer of assets. This was intended to review the policy decision to close any assets not transferred by 2022 to 2023, and would thus encourage the transfer of assets to parish councils. Overview and Scrutiny established a task and finish group, and following its commencement, local government reorganisation was announced. The task and finish group considered all the information provided, such as the details on devolution for each town or parish council, the feedback from the questionnaire sent to every town and parish council, and the details on costings, including the funding that had been provided. The group also considered relevant information with regard to the councils that would make up the Westmoreland and Furness Authority. The Task and Finish Group noted substantial differences in the circumstances of transferring public toilets, footway lighting and play areas to town and parish councils. Consequently, each category was dealt with separately. It was also noted that within each category, the interests of individual town and parish councils varied. The group looked to develop recommendations that took the interests of all town and parish councils into account. The starting point was that most town and parish councils had made a decision about whether to adopt assets. So, for example, Toilets from the 10 local councils and a community group of these facilities within their areas, 6 have adopted them, and at this time 5 do not wish to take on the responsibility for the asset. The toilets at Castle Park have not been part of the devolution process. Play areas. From the original 41 play areas, 4 local councils have taken on the responsibility for 6 play areas. 5 have shared management agreements. 2 local councils wish to take on the play areas within their areas, along with the significant areas of adjacent land. And this leaves 17 local councils who do not wish to take over their 21 play area assets. It is likely that local government reorganisation means that a decision on the future of management and responsibility of assets in the Eden area will be made by the Westmoreland and Furness Council. The group recommended that review of the transfer of assets work plan does not go ahead. In January 2022, Overview and Scrutiny Committee reviewed this information and supported the recommendations as set out in section 2. I would like to thank the Overview and Scrutiny Group for all of their time and attention to detail in looking at this situation and making their recommendations. It is much appreciated. This spring, Cabinet has been lobbied by Eden residents and town councillors who are very keen to resume their ambition to take control of and improve their local playgrounds and areas. It is the wish of Cabinet to support these parents and grandparents, and with this in mind, I wish to clarify recommendation 2.5 by way of an amendment. Recommendation 2.5 says that play areas and toilets that are not yet agreed for transfer remain as they are. I would like to propose that for clarity, the wording of this be amended to 2.5, that existing policies in relation to any future transfer and existing maintenance for remaining play areas and toilets remain unchanged. How do we go on with this then? Do we need a second and let them vote on it?
No, just read.
Okay, so I do all of them first. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry about that. Chair, I would like to propose the recommendations of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, including the amended version of 2.5, be accepted. That pending local government reorganisation, the recommendations in this report will replace any previous decisions made in relation to the devolution of assets. That no recharges in relation to the provision of footway lighting are levied in 2022 to 23 as a goodwill gesture for those councils who have adopted their footway lighting. That provision is made to sustain the footway lighting contract until the end of its current term in 2027, giving parish councils the option to complete on those already engaged in transfer process. That a programme is established to remove sodium lights without replacements as they cease to function. That existing policies in relation to any future transfer and existing maintenance for remaining play areas and toilets remain unchanged. That £500 be paid in 2022 to 23 to the adopting councils of public conveniences as an ex gratia payment towards running costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. Just 2.5, that has been agreed with the monitoring of the central offices. Thank you very much. Right. Does anybody have any questions about this? No. It's a very complicated matter, and it has been finished for a difficult task. And I think this is a compromise that is a hard one, and I appear to have taken on some of this for my portfolio for Westmoreland and Furness, so I must have been out of my mind. Does anybody have anything further to say? So, somebody second this? Thank you, Councillor Sharp. If nobody has anything further to say, thank you very much. It's been a long time coming. Thank you very much. Agenda item 10 is the Patterdale Parish Community Land Trust application to the Community Housing Fund, which is in the Housing and Health portfolio. So I hand over to Councillor Derbyshire.
I've been involved with Patterdale and Glenridge area for quite a long time on different housing schemes, so I'm really pleased that this one is moving forward. Just to say, in my Lake District National Park role, I always actually abstain from doing anything on this because I'm mainly acting in my Eden Housing and Health portfolio role on it. But I'm very pleased that it's moving forward. But as a lot of our developers are finding at the moment, well, a lot of the costs of materials and labour are going up at the moment, and with the fuel costs going up, they're wanting to improve the properties, the design of the properties, to get them to passive house standards, which is admirable. So the information is there on what they're wanting to do, and I know that the community are very keen to start moving forward on it. So I recommend that the application is supported and approved.
Thank you very much. And could you just tell us a bit what the Community Housing Fund is?
So I'm looking at Amanda slightly, she'll keep me right, but it was one that the government gave us a while ago, slightly surprising one, I seem to remember it landed on Christmas Day about probably 3 years ago, with some funding for community groups, community land trusts, and some other defined groups to be able to take forward their housing ambitions. And we've been employing somebody in the past few years to work with those communities, the one at Lazenby and this one and other ones, to take forward their ambitions.
That's brilliant, and it's a good ambition to have. Does anybody have any questions? Well, I take great pleasure in seconding this. And anybody enter into any debate? No, more of it. Thank you. Thank you. And agenda item 11 is a COP26 award delegation, and this straddles my portfolio and Mark's. But Mark has authority in this one, so I shall pass over to him and describe it.
Thank you, Chair. This report is to seek authorisation to approve the delegation of awarding grants under the COP26 fund to the relevant portfolio holder. In the Zero Carbon Strategy approved in 2021, the objective was included to launch the new COP26 Community Fund grant to engage with the community to develop green projects that will have a significant impact on carbon emissions and that will benefit communities across each district. The decision panel will assess the applications and recommendations which projects to make an award to. Delegating the authorisation of the grant panel recommendation to award the grant to the green growth portfolio that will speed up the process and will have a positive impact on climate change. So it is recommended that Cabinet delegate the decision to award grant related to the COP26 Community Fund to the green growth portfolio holder. This is an excellent grant scheme, and it goes with the other grant schemes that we have running at Eden currently. We've got the Green Eden Business Grant Scheme in conjunction with Seabed, and that's allowing our businesses to reduce their carbon emissions. They get a energy survey, recommendations are made, and they can look to get grants up to £10,000 to help them reduce their carbon emissions. And as Councillor Delshire has said, with the Eden has led the way with the Green Homes scheme with local delivery, allowing our residents to get grants awarded to them to have their energy efficient measures. So this just adds to what we're doing to help combat climate change and emissions in Eden.
Thank you. Not to mention biodiversity, which we should need to increase.
Well, on the 6.1 gives a list of maximum grant levels that we can award, and of course it's biodiversity is in there along with renewable energy things that we want to do.
Thank you very much. So I think it is clearer in the rubric for about the fund itself that biodiversity is important as well. Does anybody have any questions about this scheme? Well, I trust that there will be many applications for it. Would somebody like to second this? Councillor Torquay. Any further debate?
Just thanks for your vote. I think it was really right, and I'm foreseeing projects moving forward throughout the district.
Thank you very much. So shall we move to a vote? Thank you very much. So agenda item 12 is any other items which the chairman decides are urgent and there are none. And the date of the next scheduled meeting is, I confirm that the next programme meeting of Cabinet will be held on Tuesday the 21st of June 2022 at 6 p.m. So thank you everybody for attending and have a good day.